All right. Hello, everyone. If you're in the United States, good morning. If you're in UK or Europe, good after lunchtime. And if you're in the East or Far East, I guess it's the evening. Thank you for joining. So I'm trying a different tool this morning that I hadn't used before. Um, and I was it. So last, if you were with me last time, I was using something called Jitsi.org, which is a meeting tool. But this tool is specifically designed for live stream, so I wanted to see how that was going to work. Anyway, so this morning today we're talking about questions you have related to working from home. The goal of this is to help anybody who suddenly finds themselves in a situation where they're working from home, or you're a decision maker, or maybe you're an office manager that is all of a sudden tasked with having to transition the office from working in a central location to distributing people to working from home. So that is the goal of this, and I've got the chat open, and you can send me questions through the chat, and I'll do my best to answer. I am going to be candid in that I am not a expert in all things related to networking, especially deep dive type topics like Active Directory or things that are very in the weeds. Most of what I know is mostly physical type things. Let me turn the volume down just a little bit. As looking here, it looks like maybe a little too hot. Let me know if the sound is okay. I've kind of backed off the volume there a little bit. And again, I kind of asked for your patience here. I'm working with a new tool, so this is only my second live stream, and I'm working with a new tool that I hadn't used before, and I'm trying to kind of get used to it. The goal, though, is to be able to share multiple inputs like browsers and other cameras and things like that. So as I get a little bit better at mastering this, then these should become a little more fun for me and you. So anyway, all right. So not much going on in the chat, but open to questions related to home officing. While we're waiting for some of those to come in, if you've got comments about anything related to the realm of networking or telecommunications or um, voice over IP, which is kind of a subset of telecommunications. And voice over IP very much is related to that work from home environment. So I'm open to that. It's like I've got kind of a small crowd so far this morning, but maybe that'll begin to pick up here in a little bit. So I am trying to be more proactive in the way that I introduce my scheduled live stream, so that you can take advantage of knowing that, okay, yeah, I think Fridays seem like they're kind of a good day, so we may go with that. But that also kind of assumes that this is a going thing. It really depends on how well this works out. My goal is to give back, is to help people. I get a lot of questions by email. I get a lot of questions through the comment sections of the videos I make, and sometimes I just simply can't get to all of them, or the questions require a fairly complex answer, and I can't do that in that forum. But I thought if we had this might help us have a place that people could come to. I tried to kind of set it up so that it was a fairly easy time for especially the European market and the Far East, but then also here in the U.S., a lot of people are either already beginning to start their workday, or maybe they're at home still getting ready for their workday. It's a little bit early for people in California, so I don't suspect we'll see too much of them. So anyway, questions? I see a few people hanging out, but not much going on in the way of questions coming through the chat. I'm assuming the chat is on, so let me just test it out. So hello, good morning. So I don't know if you see the chat going on. I was going to try to find a way to get the chat injected into the stream so that it could be used as part of the let's see, says it could be used as part of the recordings, because after you do these, there's a recording that is stored, and I thought it would make more sense if the chat was in there. Let's see here. Okay, all right. So not much going on, not many questions coming through yet so far. I'm assuming my stream health is okay. My dashboard tells me it is, but I'm assuming you guys can hear me okay, and that you're aware of the chat. And if you've got questions, you'll let me know. In the meanwhile, I'm going to try to see if I can figure out how I can add the chat to the stream through this tool. I'm supposed to be able to let's see, if I want to add a captured window. Okay. And I don't see the chat listed as one of my potential options to add it there. So I must not be doing this right then. Okay. Shoot. Anyway, so, well, I tell you what, while we're waiting, I'll go ahead and talk about some of the things that I covered a little bit in a video I published back about two weeks ago. Yeah, I guess it was 2 weeks ago, about things you need to think about if you're going to set up a home office, or if you're the one that's responsible for distributing you're responsible for enabling the workers to go and work from home. At the very, very least, what they need is some type of data connection. And I don't mean just that they're physically connected to the internet, but they need some way to access the files that you all work with together. The easiest way, in my mind, to do that is to use some kind of a remote desktop tool like VNC or TeamViewer or LogMeIn. Or go to my PC. Is that still around? I think. But what those tools do is give you the ability to use another computer to take over the keyboard, mouse, and screen of your computer at work. So what would that look like? So if you had, say, for instance, TeamViewer installed on your work computer, it would be set up with a passcode, like some security. Then you would use another machine, I'm assuming from home, that you would log into this TeamViewer, and it would give you the access to that computer at work. You would have access to that machine, and it would be almost as though you were sitting right in front of the machine. So the things you would normally have been able to do at work, like access files, programs, databases, resources that are only local to your network, you would be able to do that from a remote machine. So again, TeamViewer, VNC, go to my PC if that's still around, logmein.com, that was another one. I'm assuming they're still around. LogMeIn, I think I used that a couple years ago, so I'm pretty sure they're still around. And those are not terribly expensive, and they're not terribly complicated to set up. They usually are designed to make it fairly easy to set up. So, oh, Michael's back. Hey, welcome, Michael. Good to see you. Anyway, so that's access to data infrastructure. That's access to programs, data, stuff at work. The second thing I would want is some kind of a telecommunications replication of work. So what you typically have at work is you've usually got some kind of a phone system or a phone server. You usually have somebody who sits in a what we call central answering position, depending on how big your organization is, that fields all the calls as they come in to the main line, and then that person distributes the calls out to the extensions or the stations of the people who work in the organization, usually like within the same building or same campus. But now that everyone's anywhere, they're at home, and because most of those premises-based, we call them premises-based phone systems, don't lend themselves well to just taking the phone out of the wall and taking it home and plugging it in. For a few might do that, but most won't. So what do you do there? Well, there's probably two things you could do. One is to see if the phone system you have would allow you to do what's known as redirects or offsite forwarding, meaning you're going to forward the lines from an individual's person's extension out to some other phone number, like a cell phone or a home phone. The only thing I have a problem with that is that it can use up your lines really fast. So say, for instance, if you only have 6 lines or 12 lines come into your organization, for every single phone call you get, will use up 2 lines. So you'll cut your inbound phone capacity in half that way. The second thing you can do is you can take and set up some type of a cloud-hosted or voice over IP in the cloud type of phone system, which then allows you to either you can get physical plastic telephones, like this, that you could set on your desk at home. And what you would do is you would forward the company's main number to this cloud service. This PBX could be Callcentric, 8x8, Fuse. There's a bunch of them out there. And so what would happen is you wouldn't be using your phone system at work anymore. You would be sending the phones to this cloud-hosted server, or PBX we call it, which would then allow your callers to listen to some kind of a greeting, like, thank you for calling the ABC company, and then they would route their calls themselves. If you know your party's extension, please dial it, or press 1 to use the dial by name. So all you're doing is just taking your main phone number, you're contacting the phone company, and you're saying, I need to forward this number to this new service that I have. And then your home users would either have the physical desk sets that are activated on that cloud service, or you can use software phones, where you can use what are called soft phones, which is just a program that lives on the computer that you use with a headset, like a USB headset, and that would become your phone. So, and they're fairly inexpensive to set up. So that's the telecommunications piece. Another piece, and certainly not the last, but another major piece to me is the collaboration. So what are you going to use to interact with each other? And I don't just mean just on the telephone and by email, but what about kind of like, I'm with you. You see my video, you see my hand gestures, you see my facial expressions, and that level of connectedness adds to the cohesiveness and the interoperability, I guess, is that the word I'm looking for? How well you get things done together, your efficiency as a team. And so having those tools to be able to share video and share screens, for that matter, can be really add a level of depth. I mean, you probably could get by with just the remote access to the PC and the phones, but something like that tool I was using Monday when I did this, jitsi.org, jitsi.org. It's super, super easy to use that stuff. And all you're doing is really just, you're going to that website and you're saying, hey, I want to start a meeting. And it doesn't even ask you to install anything, which I think is pretty cool. You don't have to give a credit card. You don't have to give them your email address. You just say, hey, I want to start a meeting, and you pick a meeting name and you go. Now, there's Jitsi. Now, there's other ones too. There's ones you can pay for, like Zoom. Zoom is extremely popular right now. It's both a free and a paid service. So let me explain. You can get the free service, but you can only have short meetings. You can't have meetings longer than 40 minutes. Or you can get the paid version, which pretty much means you can have as many meetings for as long as you want. So Zoom is another one that's pretty popular. And I had posted a video about this 2 weeks ago. I had asked people, there's probably things I haven't even thought of that you might do in your business that doesn't fall neatly into those categories of, remote access to data, the phone system, or the video collaboration. There's just things I haven't thought of because I just haven't been exposed to them. But one I did think of was people who rely on radio dispatch. I don't know how that would work when people are too far away from the center, because the radio dispatch only goes so far, I guess, and that's one I thought of. Plus, there's other jobs that don't just rely on people sitting in front of computers, and yet at the same time, if you don't want those people to be in the office or coming to some central hub anymore, now they kind of have to be able to still do what they do, but not have that central hub of instruction and guidance that they used to have before. Somehow that has to be distributed, and I don't know if that's through text messaging. That's another one I hadn't thought of, that maybe text messaging makes sense for that. Anyway, I'd be curious to hear. You leave your comments in the chat, and and again, just for those of you who join us, the whole point of this was really just I'm putting myself out there to answer questions that you might have about either if you're somebody who has to work from home and this is a new thing for you and you're a little bit confused or challenged by the logistics of getting the connection or getting a phone hooked up or something like that. I'm here to kind of help with those. The second thing is for those who might be decision makers who are challenged with the task of having to set up those people. And that could mean you're an IT person, although I would think most IT people would probably have a handle on most aspects of it. But, like I said, I don't know everything either. So there could be something I could offer that might be helpful. I feel as though my target audience for this, though, is the office manager type people, because they're the ones usually that get handed this kind of responsibility, but they're not IT people. Although amazingly, they know enough because they've had to learn how to kind of become junior IT people. So anyway, the chat is open for whatever comments, questions. And there is a little bit of a delay from the time that I see a chat before you hear me reacting to it. I forgot to bring my water this morning. Oh no. So I hope I don't need my water the next 40 minutes. Anyway, there was interesting related to kind of this thing we're going through with this pandemic. I read this article this morning that kind of compared you're familiar with what they call the 5 stages of grief. What are they? They're denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. Yeah, denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance, and how that we as a collective are probably going through those right now. I know that when this thing kind of started to unfold, I know I had quite a bit of not exactly denial, but kind of this like, well, I'm sure we'll get this figured out and get past it real fast. And I don't think I've quite reached the anger stage, and I don't think a lot of people have, but I think we will. I think right now we're still very much in this is all new, still trying to get our heads wrapped around it. But I think my guess is that at some point we'll eventually start to shift to anger next, because we realize that there's a loss going on here, that we're not, some of these things that have happened now are irreparable. I mean, there are businesses now, by now, even this short period of time, I know here in the United States, there's businesses that are they're gone. They won't come back. And there's industries that have probably been permanently changed. I think one of the things that probably may see a new permanent change is the way that we shop, and this particularly the way we shop for groceries. I think we're going to see that's changed. I think the way that we office, which gets back to the whole point of this session, is that one of the resistances to the whole work from home initiative has always been this belief, and I don't think it's an unfounded belief, that employees won't won't work with the same level of diligence and efficiency if you let them work from home unsupervised. I don't know that that's true. In fact, in some cases, I've heard productivity actually gets better when people work from home. But either way, regardless of that previous resistance to the initiative to work from home because of that belief, is happening anyway. There are people that are now working from home that didn't used to. Managers are having to learn to cope with this, and I think that it's probably a 70-30 split if I had to guess. I think, yeah, there is probably about 20-30% of employees who just really won't be able to handle working from home. They won't do well probably for two reasons. They won't do well because they kind of need that environment in order to thrive. They're extroverted personalities, or they need that shoulder to shoulder environment in order to get their job done. The second thing is, I think that some just simply just won't be able to self manage. They won't be able to have that self discipline to stay focused, because one of the problems with being at home is that everything that you are familiar with that would distract you, things like family members, television, uh, household, trivial pursuits at your household would be distracting too. But I do think that a majority, three-quarters or so, would probably be fine. And what'll happen, depending on how long this lasts, is that this probably will end up being a permanent change for a lot of people and businesses. And uh, what some business stakeholders, owners or people who kind of are affected by the profit centers of the businesses, they may find that this is actually more efficient for the bottom line, that this is actually more effective. I know about 10 years ago, I used to work for IBM, and there was this initiative at the time where they were, well, I guess it was a little more than 10 years, but what they were doing before the big collapse of 2008, they were systematically taking and sending people home. They were slowly taking people out of the buildings and sending them to work from home, and they were mothballing the buildings, although I think with the ultimate goal to finally just sell the whole property. And I guess it worked out well for them because they kept doing it. So I guess it worked out well. Anyway, so it'll be interesting to see when we finally emerge from this, however long that is, 6 months, a year, 18 months. These things can go for a while. We may see that once the smoke clears, that some people that used to work in an office and now work from home probably may be permanently working from home. And it can be good and bad. I have been self-employed most of my adult life, and I have always had a home office. I can tell you that one of the things that's kind of tricky about having a home office is getting your family to understand that when you're in your office or when you're in that work mode or work hours, that I'm at work. I'm not available. I'm not available to, Daddy, can you tie my shoe? Or, honey, can you help me get the Christmas tree down from the attic or whatever? So there's the technological piece, which I think is what we're here to talk about, and then there's also the psychological or self-management, self-discipline piece of this that has to be considered too. So Frank's joining us this morning. Hey Frank, what do we got? So because you guys can't see the chat and this gets recorded, I'm going to go ahead and read Frank's chat. I'm still trying to find a way to get the chat in the stream. I haven't mastered this tool yet well enough. But anyway, Frank says, in 1997, I worked for eToys and grocery delivery service, which failed in 2000. Ooh, shocker there, huh? A lot of things failed in 2000, right? Anyway, they were ahead of their time, but we still had a modem and dial-up. Today, the service could be used. Change is good. Yeah, exactly. I've seen that too. A good parallel to that, Frank, was voice over IP. Came out in 2002, and the world was just not ready for it. I mean, for one thing, the quality of service management was horrible. The quality of the conversation, depending on what network you on, was really bad. But people just weren't ready for it. And even though voice over IP is fairly popular now, it still really hasn't got that penetration of the market. If I just had to guess based on what I see, I don't think that voice over IP is penetrated much more than maybe 15-20% of the entire market. There's still so much um, of that, what we call TDM or digital infrastructure out there, which is just physical copper wire connections between the phone server and the phone set that sits on the desk. So yeah, and I think what I'm hoping will come out of this is that we'll see almost kind of a, I don't know how to say this without sounding kind of harsh, but this is a little bit like, and I don't mean this in terms of like mortality or population attrition, but I mean this more in terms of just like the way that we do things. Is to be kind of a cleansing or like a forest fire effect. Again, I'm not talking about people's lives. I'm talking about technology, because I feel like we've reached over this 11-year bull run that we've had, in the first world economically. There's kind of this froth that is built up with all these like frivolous technologies that, while cute and maybe appealing to some segments of the population, are not really that vital. And so when these harsh downdrafts occur, or these forest fires occur, if you let me use that metaphor, it tends to shake out the weaker hands. It tends to shake out the stuff that just can't hang on. We saw this. Well, Frank, you could probably remember. We saw this in 2000. Was it two? Yeah, it was 2000, March of 2000, where we had this incredible bull run during the 90s, and the tech revolution was coming into play, and we were having what was known as the new economy, and there were all these like really frivolous .com this, .com that, and when that big downdraft happened, when it was over, only the really strong hands, the necessary things, were what survived. Although I would argue that, like your example, there were some things that died that actually had to come back to life again later. So that's kind of what I'm hoping will happen now, is that we'll see kind of a cleansing of sorts that will kind of wash out some of the frivolous technology that doesn't really matter, because the reason why I want that is because I feel like what's happened is it's distracting. I'll give you a personal example. One of the things that I've been doing with this video stuff that I do, I've been doing this for about coming up on 11, 12 years now, making these YouTube videos, is that every time something new would come out, I'd wonder about, do I need to go do that now? And at one point I thought, well, okay, I guess I need to do Facebook and Tumblr and Twitch and TikTok, and it pulls me in so many different directions. And I said, nope, I'm going to focus on what it is I need to know, what it is I'm really good at. So, and Frank mentions the how 2007 and the iPhone. The iPhone was yeah, it was amazing. It's funny because I was a hardcore Android person for a long time, and I finally switched over to iPhone back about, I don't know, I guess about a year ago. Now I still keep an Android. It's my safety blanket. But I, especially for most of my personal life, my non-contract work type stuff, I kind of keep that on the Android, and I keep my personal life on the iPhone. So, but yeah, so we've reached this kind of frothy, critical mass where almost like it has to implode back on itself, and then the things that don't really matter or can't survive because there's just simply not enough demand will fade away, or go up in ashes or smoke, and then that what really matters, that really does truly add to the quality of life or the efficiency of the way we live our lives and get our jobs done will remain. I don't know what those things are yet. I don't. I'm looking forward also to potentially some new positive changes that I haven't even thought of yet. one of the things that I hope would happen, and I think I'm going to go off on a side road here, is that I feel like what the Great Depression did from a positive perspective was it created, or it forged, or what's that word you do when you temper something with fire, forged in the fire. You created a generation who was so focused on cooperation and self-sacrifice that they were able to marshal the effort, gigantic, unbelievable efforts to do what was needed for World War II. I don't think we could fight World War II today. I don't think we have it. And again, I'm going off a side road. I'm in danger of kind of becoming a little bit too political for a channel which is supposed to be mostly just focused on technology. But I'm getting back to my point, which is that some of the whilst these situation we're in may be excruciating for a while, some of the benefits may be that on the other side we've got maybe a stronger population in terms of just the way that we think and act and deal with each other, that we may have technologies that are truly forged in the fire, that have been fire tested. I'll go ahead and say it. I kind of hope that TikTok goes away. I think it's a big time waster, but I'm also not 15 years old either. There's probably a lot of things I did when I was 15 years old that people probably thought were a big time waster, like MTV. Okay, so but anyway, that I'm hoping that there's going to be some positive things that are going to come out of this. So, all right. Well, I just want to reiterate for anybody who's joined us, the goal of this session is to talk about anything related to working from home, especially as it's related to the technology that you need to work from home, and whether you are a person who has to do the working from home or you are a decision maker that is going to be having to facilitate helping people work from home. Then it's kind of my goal is to if you've got questions, let's talk about them. So I just realized that I've been doing about half the stream already with this window kind of like on top of black, and so let me go ahead and stretch it out here. There we go. I'm just so I'm using a tool called what's this thing called? OBS, I think it was called. Somebody had suggested it to me, and I went and got it. But what it does is it gives you like this kind of a black canvas, and then you can put different objects on it. I still haven't quite got that. Let me go close this window back here because I think it's causing a halo around my head here. So, and I'm certainly no angel. So let me go close this here. Okay, that's maybe a little better. Well, marginally better. Anyway, and you're probably wondering, oh my God, why is he wearing shorts? Well, because I'm in Central Florida and it's hot here. Even though it is March in the northern hemisphere of the globe, it's usually cool in March. Here in Florida, it's plenty warm already. So anyway, so there's a chat going on. I wish I could find a way to get the chat into the stream. I haven't got that figured out yet. Maybe for the next one, I'll find a way to get that in there, so that when people go back and look at the record, I'm assuming that when you go back and look at the recording, you can't see the chats. So anyway, so Frank says this is really good. I am cleaning my lab and I found some extra equipment which is out of date. I wonder if I should sell it on eBay. Frank, we're probably brothers. I have this dilemma all the time. And I hold on to stuff for forever. Out in my garage, I probably have, those big storage bins that, like they're kind of like, 3 foot by 2 foot by 2 foot. I've got probably 6 of those out in the garage full of old laptops, old modems, old routers, old gizmos, connectors, PS2 keyboard adapters. So I'm not the person to ask. I will tell you this. I did sell some stuff on eBay, and what I found everyone's time is different. Everyone's value of their time is different. I personally found that if I couldn't sell something for at least $50, it wasn't worth messing with, because the amount of trouble that you have to deal with of, you got to photograph the thing, you got to list it, you got to answer the questions that inevitably come up while it's listed. Then once the deal is sold, you got to wait for the money, because just because it sells doesn't mean everyone pays. Okay, so, and then if they don't pay, then you got to go back and relist it, or at least you have to go back and contact some of the bidders and see if they're still interested. Then you have to take it to the post office, and then you got to pack it. You got bubble wrap and all that stuff. So again, I found that for the amount of trouble it takes, if it wasn't worth at least $50, 50 US dollars, if it wasn't worth at least 50 US dollars, it usually wasn't worth fooling with. Although amazingly, there is a tremendous amount of demand out there. I remember I had these old laptops that I had bought in the 90s. They were called librettos. They were tiny little things. They were like little bitty laptops. This was before the netbooks came out, and they were even smaller than that. I had 3 of them. I had absolutely no use for them about, no, I don't know, 5-6 years ago. So I mean, they were way out of date. They were 486s. Is what they were. Or no, I'm sorry, they were Pentiums. They're like Pentium 1s. And so I listed them, and I sold a lot of 3 of them for like, I don't know, $100, something like that. Somebody wanted them. I'm like, okay, I don't know what you're going to do with them. Put them in a museum, I suppose. I mean, they're so old that there's nothing, there's nothing that I could think that you would really use them for, except maybe like a fax server, maybe. I guess. I mean, assuming you could put some kind of OS on there that was supported. I mean, you could put Windows 2000 on there, I guess, but it's not supported anymore, so it could be open to exploitation. All right, well, how are we doing? Okay, so it's getting up on 8:40 here in the eastern part of the United States, and I haven't had too many questions. I had some good comments. Frank, thanks for participating. So, yeah, Frank mentions about his Lenovo laptop minis. I loved all the Lenovo products, all the IBM products. In fact, I had some IBM laptops. There was this laptop IBM made. This was back in the early 90s. It was called the Butterfly. And the reason it was called the Butterfly is because it was kind of a compact laptop, but it was so small that it was not big enough for a keyboard. So when you opened it up, the keyboard would expand, like kind of pop out. And then that's why they called it the Butterfly, because it kind of opened its wings when you opened it up. Anyway, I held on to that thing for the longest time. I looked on eBay. Nobody really seemed that interested in it, so I ended up pitching it. Oh, that was painful. It's hard for me to throw old stuff away. I really have a hard time with it. Frank mentions that Vista software was a nightmare. Yeah, Vista was. 2008 wasn't much better either. Or what was it? What was it called? Windows 8. Was it Windows 8? Yeah, I guess it was Windows 8. Yeah, that Windows 8 wasn't much better. In my opinion, the best Microsoft OSs were probably DOS 5. Windows 98 wasn't bad, but it wasn't perfect. Windows 2000 was good. Windows XP was really good. We could have stayed on Windows XP for quite a while. Windows 7 was even better. Windows 10, I don't know. I mean, I use it because I don't have a choice, but if I had to pick one to go back to, it'd probably either be DOS 5 or probably maybe Windows XP or Windows 7. The reason why I think Windows 7 made everything about XP that was good even better. I feel like Windows 7 was heavier. I felt like Windows XP was lighter. It was more nimble. If I recall, Windows XP only took up like what was it, like 5-6 gig? If you did it right, Windows XP would only be like 5 or 6 gig. So but like Windows 7, for example, was easily like a 12 plus gig installation. So it was big, took up a lot of space. So yeah, I really liked XP. I really enjoyed XP. Windows 7 made XP even better, but Windows 7 was heavier. It was just a much bigger OS. So yeah, but Vista was a nightmare. 2000, or what they called Windows 8, wasn't that great. And does anyone remember what was it called? Millennium Edition. It was between Windows 98 and 2000. So just for a short little time between after Windows 98, but right before they really mainstreamed Windows 2000, there was this thing called Windows Millennium Edition, and it was kind of a mess too. It was like they had kind of taken some of the things they had already decided to put into 2000 and just kind of juiced up Windows 98 and came up with this thing called Millennium Edition. Yeah, couldn't wait to get rid of that. Anyway, all right. Well, we haven't had too many questions. I'm thinking maybe I'm kind of barking up the wrong tree with this work from home Q&A session. So I think maybe if we do another live stream, maybe next week, I'll focus on something. Maybe I'll just pick a topic and just cover that topic. Although that's usually what I do with my videos is I try real hard to take something that somebody wants to know. Like say, for instance, let's say we have like this little Netgear home router. I'll try to take something like this and talk about how it's used and how you set it up. And I try to condense that all down into like, I don't know, anywhere from 5 to 15 minutes. I find videos that are much more than about 10 minutes, people typically don't watch them all. I've been doing this, like I said, for about 12 years. One thing I've learned is there's a sweet spot, at least for the content I deliver, there's a sweet spot of about 5 minutes, maybe 7, if you're doing a really good job of holding their attention. But I think when people want answers and they're looking through search results, when you look through the search results, you can see next to each video how long it is. And I know I do this too. If I want an answer, but I see a video it's like 20 minutes, I don't know if I'm going to click on that because I don't want to have to wade through 20 minutes to get my answer. But if I see the videos like say 3, 5, maybe 7 minutes, I'll go for that because I think I can usually kind of, you know how you can kind of drag the little progress bar to kind of get your answer, So, yeah, Frank's agreeing. Yeah, 5 or 8 minutes. Yeah, I found for what I deliver, which is basically simplistic answers or simplistic short little answers to common IT and telecom type questions, that 3 to 5 to 8 minute mark seems to work pretty well. Now, ironically, some questions you can actually do it like in less than a minute or like in less than 90 seconds. Those videos don't do so well. I don't know why. I would think people would want the answer as fast as possible, but I think there must be an immersion process that takes place when you do a video. People must have to kind of get into it, and maybe a 90-second video just doesn't seem to do that as well. So, but yeah, my best ones tend to be 3 to 5. And if it's a really good topic, sometimes 7. Now, I have done a few. That one that was really popular. What's the one the one with the trash in the wall? What was that one called? Office something like small office networking. I think where I was wearing the head cam and I was. That one's actually, I think that one's almost 20 minutes, and that one still gets a lot of views. I had no idea when I made that thing that it was going to be that popular. I really did not set out to, hey, I'm going to make a really popular video. I put the webcam on, what was it? It was like a little GoPro thing I put on my head. I was going about doing my job. I brought it back to the office, chopped up the video a little bit, stitched it together, posted it. Of course, that was back when my channel was like nothing. That was back in 2015. I think I did that about 5 years ago. Yeah, that was kind of a watershed event for me because that video really kind of took my traffic to the next level and kind of inspired me to actually start doing this a little bit more, because prior to that, the monetization from ads is pathetic. I mean, even now it's not that great for the level of content, for the amount of content and the amount of work that you have to do to produce that content. The monetization is not that great. I know there's people who make a living from YouTube. Maybe if I had all day, but the reality is that I got to put food on the table for my family, which means I got to go out and run assignments and do contract work so that I can get money now. I can't wait 4 or 5 years for my channel to grow, So anyway, if I had to do it all over again, though, if I was like still in college or something, I had a lot more spare time, I probably could turn it into a full-time job, knowing what I know now. If I had more time to devote to it. All right. Yes, content is king. I agree. Questions? Got about 15 minutes left. Comments? Frank, I really appreciate your participation. Really helps to have somebody giving you a little bit of feedback and some running comments because it's kind of hard to sit in front of this camera and microphone and just kind of deliver your radio show without any feedback or interactiveness. Maybe I need to do a better job of getting the pre-announcement out. Yesterday I went and I made the stream and I said schedule, and I looked at another user account that I have that subscribes, and I looked and I could see that it was on the home feed. But I don't know like what would kick out emails because I don't want to spam people. I don't want to. So, and I don't have anybody's email address. I don't have a list or anything like that. But um, I wish there was a better way I could kind of get the word out to let people know, like, okay, yeah, on this Friday at 8 o'clock, I'm going to do this thing, this live stream, and we're going to talk about, could be whatever. Doesn't I think the work from home thing doesn't seem to be getting much traction. I guess everyone's got it all figured out. I was doing that based on the number of questions I was getting through email and comments. I kind of had thought there would be some pent up demand, but maybe not. One thing I was debating doing was maybe taking something like this router, like a typical home router, and maybe just logging into it and maybe sharing that that GUI or the graphical user interface on the screen, and maybe we could talk through some of the line items and talk about. There's still some misunderstandings for a lot of people about like, well, what is DNS and what's the difference between using the local DNS as opposed to using like a remote DNS like Google. Things like MTU size, what does that mean? What should it be? Should I mess with it? Things like DHCP scope versus static, we could talk about that. So that was something I was maybe might do for the next one is go a little deeper into the, again, like I said earlier, I try very hard to take and deliver simple, quick answers to things that could potentially be fairly complex. But the trade-off there is that you get kind of an overly simplified answer, which doesn't always cover all the things you might need to know to really get the level of detail you need. Like, again, the difference between static versus DHCP. Well, hold on, what's DHCP? Okay, well, I'm going to back up and explain that. What's DNS? What's local versus, DNS provided either by my ISP or even a third-party DNS like Google. What's some of the other ones? Filters, some of the firewall functionality. I feel like one of the things that happens with a lot of home users is it's all they can do just to get their stuff up and running, that the minute they establish that internet connectivity, they're done. That like they don't go any farther than beyond that, probably because they're tired of it, they're ready to get busy doing what it is they wanted to do, which was enjoy the internet stream. Or maybe they're afraid they're going to break it if they keep messing with it. But what they don't do is they don't set complex passwords. They don't set like the firewall functionality. So you end up with a lot of these home devices, cameras, routers that are just kind of wide open for hackers. So Frank suggests Tech Tuesday at 3 p.m. Just run videos. I thought about the video thing, and what I don't know is, I guess I need to test this, is like, if I launch a video in the stream, what does that look like? That's something I got to test between now and the time. I could, because I could take some of my more popular videos and I could kind of run them, or what I could do is I could chop some of them up and make medleys so that people, and I could kind of talk through them a little bit, like what it's about. Yeah. So yeah. So yep, definitely need a better system on passwords. What we need, I think, though, is better biometrics. Getting back to your comment earlier about the iPhone, I mean, that's one thing the iPhone does really well now is either the thumbprint or the face recognition, it really saves a lot of time now. A lot of the websites that I visit on my iPhone have the biometric tied to the password, so I don't have to put the passwords anymore. And it's great for me because it's convenient, but it also adds a better level of security, because the biometrics are so much harder to spoof. Passwords can be guessed, but biometrics not so much. I mean, I suppose somebody will eventually figure out. I guess, like if you took a picture of me, could you print that out in color and then hold that over the phone? Would that work? Maybe it would. I don't know. It's kind of amazing to me is how the biometrics for the facial recognition still work even when I have like glasses on, or like when I wear my bike helmet. Because sometimes if I have some time, I'll go for a bike ride in the middle of the day. I take my phone with me, and for whatever reason I check my phone. I've got my sunglasses on. I've got my bike helmet on, and it's amazingly it's still the facial recognition still gets it. It must be some kind of a ratio between your nose to your lips to your cheekbones, etc. So it doesn't really care if you've got like a helmet or sunglasses on. So that's pretty cool. All right. Well, we got our last 9-10 minutes. So for any of you just joining, if you came, feel free to speak up on the chat. Questions about technology, work from home. A little earlier, we were kind of waxing philosophical and psychological about work from home. So that's fair game too. I don't have any problem talking about that. I've got a lot of experience with having a home office. So I've certainly got some things that I could contribute, both in the way of technology, but also in the way of just kind of like mental discipline. I have heard of people who have been wanting to, who've been told to work from home. And they said, well, I'll just set up in the kitchen, on the kitchen table. I'm thinking like, yeah, let me know how that works out for you. I mean, maybe if you're single, it might. But if you're married or if you have kids, or if you're in a household with other members of the household, that's going to be tough. Frank suggests fiber optics. Yeah. So just to be clear, I'm not a guru on fiber optics. I work with it because I have to, because I get asked to. But I kind of had almost in hindsight wished I had, maybe when it was first kind of becoming more popular back around, I don't know, it seemed like 2000, it was getting to where you could buy the kits somewhat affordably for doing the splices and things like that. I wished I had learned that. But I mean, there's those two videos I made. One was fiber optic basics for field techs. The other one was networking two buildings with fiber. And I think I kind of probably emptied out my repository of how much I know with those. I mean, in the one I talked about, the different types of modes you could have, single and multi-mode. And then we talked about the different connectors, the ST and the SC and the, what was that, L something, I'm not sure what else I could add. I think I was talking about it yesterday. Somebody was asking about networking, and they were saying, when do you use fiber? What situations call for the use of fiber? And I mentioned the buildings, but yeah, maybe we could do one on fiber. What would be neat though would be able to, if I could get like a guest or something who knew a lot about fiber, that would be pretty cool. In fact, actually, what I could do, that gives me an idea. Okay. Maybe I should have a guest come and visit with me, I have some other people I work with that maybe I could entice to come and share some time with me, and I could set up a meeting, and then we could the two of us could talk about the different things that we deal with in the field. That could be interesting. So, food for thought. Anyway, I'm still new to this. This is only my second live stream. I don't even consume a lot of live streams, so I'm not even really familiar with. I know gamers do it a lot. I've heard that gamers are out there printing money, doing live streams where all they're doing is just playing a game and talking their way through it. I'm not a gamer, so and I don't think I have that level of charisma that would cause millions of viewers to flock to me to watch me play a video game. But I really am just trying to give back. I really feel as though that we're going through a really weird time right now with so many people being asked to either give up their jobs or asked to maybe reduced amount of hours and consequently reduced amount of pay, and then people being asked to work from home. And I guess now that I said that, it's one thing to work from home because your office has told you this is what we're going to do. We want you to work from home. But I guess I just kind of realized in saying that there are some people who all of a sudden finding themselves having to create a business that's work from home because they lost their job. And that brings in an interesting dynamic, which is cost. Because we don't want to run out and spend a lot of money on gizmos and gadgets and technology. Being self-employed, I'm acutely aware of how much frugality, how much the need to watch the expenditures plays in the role of setting up a home office. So that could certainly be something to talk about. So Ben has just joined us. Hi Ben, welcome. So yeah, exactly. So yeah, maybe we could do like a coffee talk, like get a little coffee mug and then have my guests on the video and have them have a coffee mug, and we could talk about maybe some of the current trends in technology and in small office, home office, mid-size office type things that we're seeing. So yeah. Yes, I do have a lot of phones. That's a lab. That comment you just made about the phone, that's a lab back there. That's a voice over IP lab because I do a lot of work for a voice over IP company, and so I have to have a lab I need to know so that when I go to do the installation and the training, I need to have already practiced. I can't be learning in front of their customer. When I show up, I am the expert. So that's there for my own practice, so that I can be sharp. Yeah, they're mostly Polycoms back there. There's some Cisco's hiding there in the back. I got the Cisco's thinking like, oh man, this is great, Cisco voice over IP. I never see it used. It's almost all Polycom. 90% of it's Polycom. So. Yeah. Oh, maybe take it to the beach, huh, Frank? Frank says Florida has some nice beaches and coffee shops. I mean, has some nice coffee shops and sunshine. Yes, we do. No, I'm very happy to live in Florida. I love living in Central Florida. And I try never to gloat. I try never to poke fun at people who are in the colder climates during the months of January, February, March, and half of April, because I've been in that seat. I lived in Connecticut for many years, so I know what it's like to have to endure a cold, gray, long winter that doesn't ever seem to let up until about the 1st of May. So I don't gloat. I don't take it lightly that I live in Florida and how much I enjoy the warm weather and the fact that I get to wear shorts in the afternoons, when I'm not working. So unfortunately, I have to wear blue jeans when I go to work. But if I could wear shorts while I'm working, I would. But that's just not professional. Anyway, well, I think we're going to wrap up here. Frank, I certainly appreciate your participation, and I appreciate the compliments there, Ben, about my videos. I'm still feeling my way through this live stream thing. This is only my second one. I'm still learning the tools. I tried one tool last time. I'm trying a new tool this time. This tool I'm using now, it's called OBS, I think is what it's called, seems to be a little bit more promising. I just got to master it. And then I think the other piece is the content. I kind of just had thought it would be a build it and they will come kind of thing, thinking that, well, if I just, host the stream and tell people that I'm here for your questions, I thought I would get a lot more. That hasn't worked out so far. And I think I'm still kind of homing in on what my flow is going to be for these live streams. Maybe I'll even back them up and maybe just make them like a half an hour or something, and then see how this goes, because an hour is a long time to talk to yourself. And again, Frank has been wonderful this morning, providing me all kinds of feedback and comments and interactivity. That's helped a lot. And Ben, you, maybe if you could join a little bit earlier on the next one, that would be great. But thanks for stopping by. And so I'm going to wrap this up. Maybe we'll look at doing one again next Friday. It a little bit has to depend on my assignment schedule. It's gotten slower lately for obvious reasons, so that's why I can do this. So I'm leery yet to kind of put this as a reoccurring every Friday thing. I'm not ready to do that yet, although I realize that would be probably beneficial. I'm just not ready to do that yet. So I'm going to wrap it up, and I'm going to put my little finger over the end stream button here. And I hope you guys all have a good Friday and a good weekend, and we'll maybe talk next week. So thanks, everyone. Bye-bye for now.